Chris, I put this question to epidemiologist Michael Baker yesterday. So I said to him, look, there have been blood clots and deaths associated with the AstraZeneca jab and other COVID vaccines. And I just wanted to know, have there been any serious side effects recorded in New Zealand linked to the Pfizer jab? He said no, only minimal. Have there been any serious side effects or issues recorded in New Zealand by people having the Pfizer?
Not as far as I'm aware. I mean, you get some mild or even moderate side effects that we know about, which are partly because your immune system is responding to the vaccine, but I'm not aware of any serious side effects reported in New Zealand to date, and they are being very carefully monitored. I'm not aware of any serious side effects reported in New Zealand to date.
He said no, only minimal, but then we had a lot of people write in and say, no, that's not actually the case. So I want to put that to you. Have there been any serious side effects linked to the Pfizer in New Zealand that you know of or that have been recorded? Is you got any understanding of that?
Yes, there have been a few people who have experienced side effects. That's not unusual for this vaccine. That applies with almost any vaccine that gets rolled out. So you do get some people who have an allergic reaction, often not to the vaccine, but the solution that the vaccine's mixed in with, for example. And so those are all recorded. They're all publicly available. They're on the Centre for Adverse Reaction Monitoring, CARM, website. People can look at those. It is a smaller rate, though, of reactions than almost any other vaccine we use.
How many were there? How many patients are we talking about? How many people?
Oh, well, it really depends on what you're classing. If you're classing the more severe reactions, it's a very small number, handful of people. There are other people who report, well, I had an achy arm for a period afterwards, or I got a bit of a cough, or, there are people who have, or I was a bit achy for a few days. That's at the mild end, and there are a bigger number of those.
Albert, that was a cut from somebody here in New Zealand called Coronavirus, appropriately, who does some good edits, and he has picked up on the man who succeeded Jacinda Ardern, who was the woman who caused such damage to this country, and Chris Hipkins, as once she ran away from New Zealand, which she did, realising that many of us were onto how much she had hurt New Zealanders. He took over, and he has a reputation for being very loose with the truth. He did that just last week when he put out something about me that had absolutely no relation to anything that I do or would do or have done. So he's very loose with the truth, and he's caught in this clip. And I want to look into the reports from New Zealand from around the time that he says it was only a handful of reports. It was nothing major. It was just a few people. And then the prior man, who's meant to be one of our leading scientists at the time, Michael Baker, who said he'd heard of no adverse reports. And this, we are talking June, July of 2021. So could we go into that part of your database taken from the Vaccine Adverse Events Reporting System in America, which has had supposedly all the reports sent over from New Zealand, from the CARM, from the MedSafe here in New Zealand? We know that not all the reports have been sent in and properly recorded, but let's see what we had back in 2021.
Okay. I think you can see my screen.
I can.
Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do here, this is my master dashboard. This is the everybody screen, back to 1990, all countries. And from here, I'll just shave down by just saying just the COVID stuff.
And people can go to, you share all of this data for free for people who are investigating for themselves. And this is VAERSaware.com. Yes. Albert has put all this together from his background with data and data analysis. He's highly experienced. And because he knew that the government websites are manifestly inadequate, recording what has happened, he has been recording it on his own database. And it truly is a resource for the peoples of the world to dig in and find the truth that has been hidden.
So now you can see I'm at 1.6 million COVID jabs. You could see there we're at 39,500 deaths and all the other adverse event levels. But let me just get right to brass.
What date was that? What date
This
were we
is
looking at?
This is our all dates. I have not queried. I have not drilled into the dates, but I'm going to do country. I'm going to do New Zealand, and then we'll jump into all the different dates. Right. So down here at the bottom here, I have location, and I'm going to uncheck the all box, and then come down here at the bottom and start to type in New Zealand. And give that a second, hit apply, give that a second, and we'll see all the dashboards, all the graphs calibrate to New Zealand. It does work a little faster when you're not zooming simultaneously. I guess my system's a little slower, but here we go at New Zealand. And I'm going to come back up real quick just so we can get a bird's eye view. See, I got the ages by event. And then this throws it off because there's a lot of reports that are unknown. We don't know how old it is, even though I go into all the reports. And when they originally told us, we've discussed this before, Liz, is the reports came in and there was 3,700 reports out of the 6,800 reports that technically did not have the age populated in the age field. However, when you read the report, it clearly says this is a 20-year-old, a 25-year-old, a 70-year-old, whatever. So I ethically have updated the appropriate age into the age field. So now I'm only down to 367 reports where I don't know how old they are.
So I just want to remind people, Albert, of the work you have done unpaid, simply to be able to help the people of the world work out how much has been hidden from us. You go into each of these reports yourself and you fastidiously record the numbers in the write-up underneath, because the statistics up at the top of these reports to VAERS are often inaccurate or the boxes have not been filled. So each time I talk to you, I just want to add a deep thanks from everybody who knows of your work and those who are finding it now. What an incredible amount of work you've done. Thank you, Albert.
Thank you. So now that I have New Zealand, now I'm going to come into this button here, this orange button, date of service, which is basically the VAX date. Lags is my shorthand for the lag time between events, like how much time has elapsed between the VAX date and the symptom onset, or the VAX date and the death date, or the VAX date and the published date, or the VAX date and the received date. I got like 13 different dates that I'm measuring. And so I can clearly come in here and say, well, let me see how many reports did New Zealand have at the time of around July 6th of 2021. So all of these little graphs here, the one that I'm interested in is this one here, published date by territory. So these were the dates that were New Zealand that VAERS had published New Zealand reports. As an example, this yellow line here is telling me that 641 reports came in on one drop or one update on February 18th of 2022. So I'm interested in these ones. So the day published, wow, that's interesting. I didn't know that. We didn't get our first New Zealand report till July 2nd. And then July 9th of 2021 and July. So let me just start with these two, because the guy, I think I wrote it down. It was July 6th that person, what'd you say his name, Limpkin, or said that, or was the?
It's actually a very good name for him. No one's thought of that one. We're going to keep it on. I'm not going to tell you his actual name. We'll call him Mr. Limpkin.
Well, I'll call him Limpkin.
Yep.
So wow, only 3 4 or 5, only 5 reports at that time were published into VAERS. But I think that so yeah, nobody knew at that time. It's pretty believable what he had said. I don't know. Let's look. These 5 reports, 4 of them are deaths. So at the time that he said that, there was 4 deaths in the system.
So can we go into those and see what actual date they were? Because there's the date when they are sent over from New Zealand to the VAERS site. There's the date when they're entered into the VAERS site, but the important date is when they happened. And then we can ask when the government knew, because there is very strong evidence now that governments are withholding the sending or the filing of these reports, isn't there, Albert?
Absolutely. And I could see, my expert eye saw that there was they did a throttling trick where they published a whole bunch of reports, but they were all for old reports, and they're trying to pass them off as new or just freshly published. I'll go back and look at that and show you what I saw. But anyways, these 4 were in the system. Let me start by looking at 1 hospitalization and 4 deaths. But this was the first one. And it's telling me this hospitalization here. Here's the part that tells me it's coming from New Zealand. There's a 2-digit country code right there. And this was a Pfizer, and the person is not telling me when the person was vaxxed. Typical. The New Zealand data doesn't have the vax date, but they had to have been vaxxed before VAERS received the report on May 13th of 2021.
Okay, so that is really important. We've just had 2 officials saying there are no serious adverse events, just, minor things and a handful of people. But these officials, if they knew, and they were right in the heart of the government, which Michael Baker and Hipkins were, they would have known of this. And this is May. Now, in July
and this is when VAERS
2021,
received it. So they had to have known well before this that, when you guys had it in your bag before you even sent it over.
And we also have an indicator there in the fact that there is no date entered for when this person was vaccinated. We have an indication that somebody may well have wanted to hide the vaccination date.
Yeah.
We don't know for sure, but it's very, very slack reporting by the New Zealand system into the American system not to have the date of vaccination.
Right.
Is this the next one?
This is the next one. This is a death, a female. She does have a vax date of 6/3, and it does look like it came over in a fairly reasonable amount of time from the time she was vaccinated. Down here it says that she died the following day. One day, the very next day, and then 3 weeks later, VAERS had received it. Here's her.
Albert, we weren't told about this by Jacinda Ardern or by Hipkins. Let's see the write-up. Let's go through, take people through one of these reports again. We've done this in previous interviews with you, but just to refamiliarize people, and you can go into our longer discussions where we really showed people how to approach Albert's database, because it's important you're able to use it. So here we say symptoms: abdominal pain, body temperature was up, internal hemorrhage, loss of consciousness, pyrexia. That's fever, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yep.
And then there's the died, the date of death. Luckily, they gave it to us. Says hospital. Of course, they don't know how many days, but obviously not very many, because she died, basically within 24 hours of her vaccine.
And the date was in early June. And this, I think he was the Minister of Health at the time, this Hipkins fellow completely denied that there was anything serious, but they must have known. Let's have a look at the write-up. This woman lost consciousness. She had pain in her stomach, internal bleeding, a fever of 39 degrees Celsius. This is a spontaneous report from a contactable consumer, a Pfizer colleague. A Pfizer colleague reporting on their mother-in-law. A female, could that person please contact me, liz.gunn@freenz.org. You must know by now how much has been covered up. This is a female patient of an unspecified age who received this dose 2 via an unspecified route of administration on the 3rd of June 2021. The batch and lot number was not reported. All right, medical history included pancreatic cancer, no metastases, radiotherapy and chemo. It was unknown if the patient was pregnant. The patient received the first dose of it on an unspecified date for her COVID-19 immunization. This was the second dose. The patient's concomitant medications were not reported. The reporter stated that the Pfizer colleague's mother-in-law, who was undergoing chemo for pancreatic cancer, had her second dose on the 3rd of July 2021 and died on the Friday, the 3rd of June 2021 and died on the 4th of June. She had a fever of 39 degrees following the vaccination. She had also had chemo earlier in the week. Late on the 4th of June, she had a pain in her stomach, and within 5 minutes of complaining of the pain, she lost consciousness. She was hospitalized. She died around 1 hour later. The father-in-law, who was a GP, suggested that it was an internal bleed on an unspecified date that may have been related to the radiotherapy that had been shown to have caused considerable scarring, or that the tumor, which was wrapped around an artery, had invaded the artery. However, as she had so recently had her second dose of the vaccine and had suffered an adverse event related to this second dose, here is the report. So that's why they're reporting it. The outcome of the event, internal bleed, was unknown, while the outcome of the other events was fatal. The patient died on the 4th of June. It was not reported if an autopsy was performed. Interesting. So the reported cause of death, lost consciousness and pain in her stomach and fever. It's very interesting to me because in subsequent years, I think anything where they had a concomitant, another reason to say, oh, they would have died because of this, they used it. So there was clearly a concern that the rapid onset of this fever and the bleeding was related to the jab. I would say that. What's your feeling, Albert, listening to that?
Oh, I feel the same way. I mean, I've seen too many of these reports where they right away, 5 minutes after the jab, she started experiencing, symptoms.
So what these slippery politicians will say, or this slippery Michael Baker, who tries to tell us that he's being honest with us about what went on in the pandemic, what they will try to say is, oh, it must have been the chemo and the radiotherapy. But here we have the reporting of it to the vaccine adverse events reporting system. So somebody knew that it was a vaccine that caused this. And we have a date, which is early June of 21. And then we have Hipkins, who's the Minister of Health at the time, saying, no serious cases. So if nothing else, we have a case where someone was determined to get it into the vaccine system for reporting, and we have a Minister of Health who's lied. That's what we do have. Those are the facts on the face. All right, let's go to the next one.
Oh, very sparse here. No date. The closest we can get is a submission. VAERS finally received it in June 23rd of 2021. Symptom is just death. Let's see if there's any clue. We don't even know what's currently what gender this person was, just that it was a Pfizer.
But we know that it is a New Zealand Pfizer because of the CDC split type there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we know, elderly, it was an elderly person.
This is all right. Let's have a quick read of these write-ups. Write-up death. This is a report from a contactable health professional. And then we'll go to an elderly patient of an unspecified gender received the jab via an unspecified route of administration on an unspecified date. So if nothing else, New Zealand, this is the early days of the COVID shot rollout. Look at the slackness of the reporting system. Look how much was not recorded. And the batch and lot number were not reported. Dose number is unknown. A single for COVID-19 immunization. So right from the rollout in 2021, it was really poor. The level of fastidious reporting and record keeping was not there in New Zealand. Then we have the patient medical history and concomitant medications were not reported. The patient experienced death on an unspecified date. Not even that is being fastidiously reported. It was not reported if an autopsy was performed, and there's a big question in New Zealand about the numbers of autopsies that were not done to follow up after these jabs, which again points to, the question must be, did the government want to hide and not find, let's say, what an autopsy might have found? What are we going to hear at the top? We're just finding that there is so little data on this. So it was entered from New Zealand, it was sent over to VAERS, and it was entered into the VAERS system on the 23rd of June, 2021. Let's go back down to the write-up again, Albert. I just want to go down there one more time just to see the last part of this. The reported event of death with unknown causes considered as related due to lack of information. It's incredible. And it's saying lot and batch number cannot be obtained. So these are the comments of the person who sent in the report. The company processes death cause unknown cases as possibly related to the jab and documents them as related in the global safety database unless information is provided that allows the company to exclude that. There is a reasonable possibility that this was related to the suspect product. Look at how they refer to the jab, the suspect product. The case will be reassessed once more information becomes available. Yeah, I'm sure it wasn't. The impact of this report on the benefit-risk profile of the Pfizer product is evaluated as part of Pfizer's procedures for safety evaluation, including the review and analysis of data for adverse events. How can they say that when they're not even keeping the date of the death or what was going on with her at the time or the other medications or any of the data, even the gender? I'm assuming it's a woman, but we don't actually know that. It's really slack, isn't it, Albert?
Yeah, so slack that I think that they have all the data and they're very careful about what they're sending over.
Yes, I think so too. And remember, New Zealand at this time in 2021 was being told daily by Jacinda Ardern in her ghastly meetings, you must have the jabs to save and protect the elderly. And this is an elderly woman who died in 2021 or we don't know if it's a woman, an elderly person who died in 2021. I just want to check the report there. It was elderly. It did say an elderly person, didn't it?
Yeah, right here.
Yeah, an elderly patient. And we were being told this was to protect them. And here's an elderly patient dying. And there is enough question in this very slack report. There is enough of a question mark saying it may well have been related to the jab. And yet Jacinda Ardern never mentioned this. And neither did Hipkins. Never mentioned this in 2021. While pretending that they cared so much about the elderly people. Let's go on to the next report.
Came over at the same group, same time, 6/23, June 23rd.
So that means a group of reports from New Zealand was sent over to VAERS and entered in on the 23rd of June, 2021.
Yeah, wow. This one looks like a copy. Another elderly patient. Wow, it's almost the exact same as the one before, except this one has reporting the deaths of elderly individual this week.
The death was considered by the agency, the regulatory authority, and medical staff involved to be unrelated to the administration of the jab, but were reported through an abundance of caution. That is trying to have a buck each way, trying to cover themselves in case the government came after them and said, you're not to say it's the jab. But also knowing that it was very likely to be the jab. That's what I read, and wanting to make sure that it was properly done at that stage. I believe that the doctors got more and more lax as the government allowed less and less, let's use their phrase, less and less caution in the way things were recorded. But it's a very odd statement, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it was not reported if an autopsy was performed. Now, if there was an abundance of caution, if they were being very careful, the first thing they would have done is order an autopsy. No follow-up attempts are possible. Of course, they're not. The person's dead. And here's another lack of caution. Information about the lot and batch number cannot be obtained. Why not? Why not? It's incredible.
I'm sure Pfizer would know where their batches went, what hospitals got their batches on what day. The manufacturer and the government, together would know very well. Probably knows what this victim had for breakfast that day. I mean, they know everything.
I think at this early stage they were trying to work out how much they could get away with. Let's see the last one. It really is horrific.
So this one came in the following week on June the 30th. Same lack of data, as you can see.
No gender.
No gender, no age.
And we know it's NZ Pfizer again.
Pfizer, another elderly patient.
This is really incriminating. We have had the Minister of Health, Hipkins, say, it was just a handful of people, nothing serious. And being told we must save our elderly, and they never told us that there were 3 reports that had been sent to the VAERS database. So is this a similar thing? An unspecified gender? This is what the report says.
Yep.
Received the vaccine. Batch and lot number are not reported as a single dose for the COVID-19 immunization. The patient medical history and medications were not reported. The death of one elderly individual this week. The death is considered medical staff involved to be unrelated to the administration of the jab, but was reported through an abundance of caution. Now, this is very much bureaucratic speak, and it feels as if the government's trying to feel its way into how much the New Zealand public would be looking at these reports, looking for these reports. And of course, we were all reeling. We were still trying to work out. Most of us had no idea of the extent of the evil of somebody like Ardern, who was actually rolling out a poison shot on her own people. And many were still trusting this very slick woman who gave these very confident replies at her press conferences, not realizing the deviancy behind it all. The patient died on an unspecified date. Well, that's not cautious. They would know the date. If there was no autopsy again, no further information. So there's very little detail, just these very nebulous statements. But nevertheless, they are covering themselves at this stage in 2021 in case it does get revealed that this was the jab, and they can say, hey, we put the report in. We showed an abundance of caution, which I think is belied by the fact there are no details, such scant details on another elderly woman. Your comments again, Albert.
Well, yeah, you could see it says that it's submitted by a contactable other healthcare professional, but the word contactable, they can be contacted like, hey, do you know how old this person was, what gender they were, what day they were vaxxed? When they died? I mean, it's not Absolutely. Like, it's not a friend or family. It's probably somebody not related, a healthcare professional or some other type of healthcare professional, but nonetheless, they can be contacted. It says that. Yeah, so I did want to try it this way. All published dates, because I just looked at, so these 4 deaths and 1 hospitalization was in the VAERS system and already published by the time that gentleman made that statement that, it was showing you 180 severe adverse events, but no deaths. That's not true. But here, this right here, Liz, is the smoking gun. For some strange reason, on December 1st of 2023, VAERS published 2,827 reports from New Zealand, all on one drop, on one update. So New Zealand must have been holding on to these reports. And so what I want to do is to say, okay, well, here's all New Zealand reports, but if I go up to the top here and I say, oh, look at by vax date, I see a lot more vaccinations by, early July. So if I just calibrate the dashboard to say, show me everybody that has a report that was vaccinated on or before July 1st of 2021. Let's see what kind of number we get. So vax year 2021 and vax month by July. Actually, let me do that. Let me just vax date. Let me get rid of December, November. Let's get rid of all those. So now I'm looking at July and older. And then maybe I'll shave off just to give that guy a little bit, no wiggle room at all. I'm going to say I'm going to get rid of most of July and just leave, just give them a little bit of space. This is everybody that was vaxxed by June 30th of 2021. 906 total reports. Let me just jump over here to home real quick so I could see how many deaths we're looking at. All these sum up to. Wow, 28 deaths that were vaccinated. So, and not to discount the permanent disabilities, the life-threatenings, hospitalizations, but 28 deaths by for all the people that died were vaxxed by what did we say, June of 2021. But here is where I want to go back to say, okay, all these 900 reports, when were they published? Did they come in organically, like, a few days after they were right here. There's more than half of all those reports were kind of held on and for whatever strange reason weren't published to the VAERS system, or VAERS didn't publish them. So VAERS, we could look at these, but they receive them real quick and then they publish them real fast. They don't wait hardly at all. They turn around and punt them off to the public VAERS, in my mind, VAERS should be calling back, requesting additional information from the MedSafe people to say, hey, what's the age? What's the gender? What's the vax date? Because VAERS tells us that they have 4 to 6 weeks to rigorously vet these reports and authenticate them, that they're legit, that they're not duplicate. And, they give the impression that they are requesting additional information from the submitter. So, but here's kind of a smoking gun right here that more than, about half of those reports were published way late by June 1st of 2023.
So just to clarify for people, it is staggering. So let's take it again quietly. So what's happening there in that late date dumping, Albert, is that over half of those reports would relate to a period prior to when Hipkins was saying there was nothing to see here. There was nothing major. And yet they were held back, and it must have been at a governmental level, until December of 2022, when, if there was proper reporting from the New Zealand government, they would have been put in during 2021 to show what was really going on.
Yeah, and down here, Liz, I can look at, what did I say that date was? December 1st of 2023. If I just want to zero in and see, well, what reports were they on December 1st of 2023? I could just zero in on just that one bar, those 478 reports, and then go back up to the vax date and look at how the vax dates. So here now it looks like a block, but it's 478 reports on that one date that the world got to see these reports because VAERS published them on that day. And I'm going to come up here and I can get a bird's eye view of all the vaccine, everybody, almost all of them. The oldest vaccine was June 30th of 2023. There wasn't even a person that had a vax date in there at 2022, let alone 2023. You see how old, how somebody was holding on to it. MedSafe had to have been holding on to these.
This is disgraceful. They were, as you say, throttling the truth. They were hiding the evidence for as long as they could so that they could go out and do what we saw Michael Baker say at the beginning, nothing to see here, no major, nothing adverse. And then Hipkins say, oh, there were a few, but, it was just a handful. And they must have known, someone at the highest level of the New Zealand Labour government must have been saying, just don't put the reports into VAERS, and hiding the truth from the New Zealand public. That's the takeaway from this, isn't it?
Yes, that's exactly what they seem to have done. Delayed reporting these over to VAERS. Although I'll just throw it out there. I would not be surprised if VAERS was the one throttling and purposefully delayed publishing the reports. But they do have that timestamp, but I've caught them changing the receive date. That should be sacred. They should never change the receive date. But I've caught them plenty of times changing the receive date. And if they could move that date around to say, oh, well, no, we actually only received these reports the week before, and we did such a great job and published them this week. We did our job, but no, they I'll throw that out there to say CDC, they're in cahoots with each other, and somebody's holding it, either the MedSafe people or the VAERS people.
And even though that could give the New Zealand government, Labour people an out to say, oh, no, it must have been VAERS, I would say to Labour, if you were doing your job and really caring about New Zealanders, you would have insisted that VAERS publish them. You would have told the New Zealand people, we have sent this information from the health department over to VAERS. There are New Zealanders who are dying from this jab. There are New Zealanders who are injured from this jab. And our New Zealand government did not do that. They kept repeating under Ardern, it's safe, and it's effective. And they must have known, Albert. They must have known.
And we analyzed those first 4 deaths that were definitely in the public domain by the time that guy said whatever he said. There wasn't that many. But here now I'm looking, okay, with the throttling, with the purposeful delay, I'm going to look at some of these deaths. These might be, unless it's one of the 4 people that we looked at, this might be one of the 4, because remember, June 23rd, female abdominal. I think you read this one. Okay.
I did.
Okay, so let me find the next person, because there's 28 deaths in here. Oh, here's a trick here. If I hover over the events and go organized by A to Z, Now I'll just get all the deaths together. So I don't have to keep going down and looking for, now they're in alphabetical order. So let me go to the second death, or maybe even one down here, just to spot check these. Yeah, see, we haven't seen this one. This one was October of 2021 that VAERS received it. I'm just curious, if I go into history, now I'm sorry, can you see this screen?
Yes,
or are you still on? Okay, let me just make this. When I hit that history, I just wanted to see when VAERS actually published the report. So see, right away, this is what I get frustrated with in VAERS, because VAERS received it, and then on the same day they finalized it and basically published it without going back to the submitter, and in this case, New Zealand Pfizer, and saying, hey, can you tell us more information? Luckily, we at least have the vax day and the death day. Another one of those 24-hour quick deaths. But, no vax, no age or sex. 99
there
years
is
old.
age down below, yes. A 99-year-old patient, unknown gender, received the first dose on the 10th of May, 21. And then the patient experienced sudden death on the 11th of May at 11 a.m.
There's the big gap. Like, wow, it took an additional 5 months for the VAERS to supposedly receive it from the time that they died, May 11th, to October. So this is kind of telling me that down here is the MedSafe people / Pfizer and that whole minutia that it was delayed. And we could look at the AEFI number and say, well, those other AEFI numbers, when were they reported? When were they published? Does everything line up? Because that's where you find these weird anomalies where it's like, why does whatever report that came right before this AEFI number, why was that one published, 4 months before this one?
Yes.
Something like
I so resented it when we put up the Barry Young data and people said, there are a lot of elderly deaths. They don't really count. We were forced into this jab because those who were pro what Jacinda Ardern was forcing on New Zealand were saying, you are irresponsible not to take this jab. You will put elderly people at risk. That was one of the blackmails that was used. And, it took a lot to say, no, I'm still not going to do that. I will keep away from the elderly people, but I will not have something forced in my body. Now that they're dying and the government knew, and that was back in May, don't even mention it. So, Albert, here's a case, and the person is identified as male, and they were vaccinated. The date is given. It's the 28th of the 5th. So that's May 2021. And the onset was on the 3rd of June in 2021, the onset of symptoms. This is 6 days after the vaccination. Let's have a look at the symptoms here. This looks pretty serious. We seem to have down below, we know it's a New Zealand Pfizer jab because that's down the bottom. And then if we look at the write-up, Albert, what have we got here? Agitation, angioedema, that sounds as if it's fluid around the heart, anxiety, bronchospasm, so trouble breathing, chest discomfort, dizziness, a feeling of body temperature change, headache, injection site pain. This is what Michael Baker referred to at the beginning as minor. This clearly wasn't. Mouth ulceration, this is something I've heard of a lot. Pyrexia, that is fever. Rash, urticaria, what's that one, Albert? Are you aware of that one?
Not sure, but I think it's some kind of rash as well.
I think so. And then vomiting. So I've heard many people talk about these, the horrors, that many injured that I've interviewed talk about the horrors of reactions like this. And these are Kiwis who are seriously injured. But here we have a 66-year-old male, and he received dose 2 on the 28th of May, 2021. And it was for COVID, the Pfizer COVID. And the patient then seemed to have this terrible reaction. He had a lot of these things like ulcers after the first jab. They worsened after the second. So it was ignored, these adverse reactions after the first jab. He went on, probably on medical advice, and had his second. The event outcome was died, unclassifiable. I wonder what that means. The patient died in 2021. No autopsy, or that wasn't reported as it being an autopsy. And again, we have this slack reporting, the lot and batch number can't be obtained, no further information. And the causes of death, agitation, angioedema, anxiety, bronchospasm, chest discomfort, dizziness, body temperature change, headache, injection site pain is a cause of death, mouth ulceration, pyrexia, urticaria, vomiting rash. The one cause of death that is not there, Albert, is the jab. They list all of the symptoms and they don't list the jab as the cause.
Yeah. They never do.
Nope.
Never do.
All right. Well, let's go back to just having a look to take that statement from Michael Baker and Chris Hipkins. How many, before the beginning of July 2021, how many dead Kiwis does your data that you've picked up from the Vaccine Adverse Events Reporting System in America, how many dead Kiwis had been reported?
Well, there were 22 Kiwis already dead as per VAERS, but we didn't get all the reports until 2023. I don't know if I answered that clearly, but definitely 900 people reports where their vaccination was even before Hipkins said used that time frame before July of 2021.
While they weren't reported to the public, we can safely assume that the government would have been aware of what was going on. And as you said, was throttling the release. Here we see it, throttling the release of the data until December of 2023. Half of the data that is in that block relates to data that should have been released to the public prior to July 21, because it relates to prior to July 21. So this is hard to unpick because it's hard to come to terms with the level of cynicism and the level of willingness from the government and the health officials to hide the truth from the New Zealand public. It really takes patience to go through what you're doing, the amount of work you've done. It's important for New Zealanders to get the principles, though. The data shows that there were truths that the government would have known of, the Ministry of Health would have known about, that were clearly hidden from the people of New Zealand. Then there was a large data drop in December of 2023. Half of that data drop applied to cases before July 2021. And here we have the person who was the Minister of Health, Hipkins, as Albert very appropriately misnamed him. Hipkins was actually telling New Zealanders nothing to see here. We're not aware of any serious cases. And yet there were clearly deaths prior to that date when he gave that assurance. And Michael Baker's credibility is in tatters after we see what we've seen today. Absolutely in tatters. If he didn't know this, then it shows he was not up to the job. And if he did know it, it shows he lied to us. Either way, he was continually telling New Zealanders to get more jabs. He was continually doing the government's propaganda and dirty work. So Michael Baker's credibility as a scientist, as an ethical, thorough, fastidious scientist, is utterly shot by this data. And as for Hipkins, I believe he should be put on trial with Ardern. I absolutely believe he should be put on trial for crimes against humanity in New Zealand, against the New Zealand people. Albert, your work is invaluable. What are you feeling? It's been a big session today, but another important one.
You know, I got plenty of gas in the tank. I always want to help. I mean, this is crazy. This is it's so thinly veiled. But that's, to me, I'm a kind of a medical billing pro. But gosh, I mean, once I explain it to you, you get it, you see it, it jumps right out at you. It's crazy how thinly veiled this is.
And this is what all the cynics demand. Where's the evidence? Where's the evidence that the government hid information, that the government was hiding the truth from us? Here is the evidence. And this, somebody like Kerry Woodham on ZB, on the radio station, pick this up, tell some truths. You had Hipkins on your radio station telling lies. This is the job that you and other mainstream journalists should have been doing all these years, instead of accepting the lies that the government fed to you. But I challenge you, Kerry Woodham, have Albert on your show and let him explain in more detail still how he has seen that this government under Ardern hid the truth of the jab injuries and deaths from New Zealanders while telling everybody to have more jabs. Be a responsible reporter. Kerry Woodham, all of you, be responsible now. The evidence is here. And I believe all New Zealanders should demand of our very much WEF globalist government right now, Christopher Luxon, should demand a far more exacting truth-telling inquiry of the people, by the people and for the people that goes on for days. What I want to see in New Zealand is a Truth and Reconciliation Commission on a par with what happened in South Africa when Nelson Mandela came out of prison. For weeks and months, people filed in on live television so that all South Africans could find out the truths of what had been hidden in the apartheid era. And the truths were told in front of a panel of judges. It was painful. People cried. People were angry, hurt, grief-stricken. But that was the only way for a country to heal. And it's the only way New Zealand will heal. So, Christopher Luxon, that's your challenge. Don't give us your token inquiry that will go nowhere with a report that will just end up on a dusty shelf in Parliament. Give us the people's inquiry as they did in Scotland, and let us tell our stories, and let somebody like Albert come in and help us with the truth. Albert, thank you so much for what you do. The previous programs we've done will be recorded underneath this if people want to find out more about Albert's database, VAERSaware.com. You are extraordinary, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. God bless you.